Hello, true believers, and welcome to the Comic Book Club. My name is Jamil Payne, and with me is my host, Amanda Comey.
Hey, I've been upgraded from co-host to normal host.
Look.
Hey, it's fine. I will get what I can take.
Look, you'll be happy.
Or take what I can get. I think all of our wires are crossed right now. I feel like I'm stuck in a dream or something.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. The clean segue.
Yep. So today, this is our new, what do we decide on?
Prestige. I believe we were going to call this Prestige, yeah.
Yeah, the Prestige format shows. What we'll be doing over the next 3 months is taking a whole series run that has a beginning, middle, and end, for the most part. And we'll take a look at it.
Right, and that's in contrast with what we normally do, which is specific story arcs, which are enough of a story for us to judge how good it is, but not a whole, overall story, especially when it comes to, like, superheroes and stuff.
Yeah, because who wants to read a bunch of that shit, right? I kid. But no, this comes from my desire, because, it's always my crazy ideas. I just want to read more stuff. Like, this show takes up most of my comic book time. So I feel like I'm starting stuff and I'm not finishing it. And I feel like for some of these more important runs, it's really crucial that I finish them. So this is an excuse for me to finish, like, these important, like, legendary runs. And Amanda decided we should do Sandman first. It was my idea. She took it from me. So over the next 3 months, we'll be reading 11 volumes of Sandman. That would be the initial run of 10 volumes, which I believe is 75 issues, and the prequel that Neil Gaiman did a few years ago. What is it?
Overture?
Overture, yes. So all Sandman material by Neil Gaiman. That's what we'll be covering over the next 3 months. This right here, we'll be covering the first 4 volumes, which is issue 1 through 28. That would be in volume 4, and that would be Prelude and Nocturnes, The Dollhouse, Dream Country, and Season of Mist. Sandman is a multi-Eisner Award winning series. It won 26 Eisner Awards, 4 for Neil Gaiman, Best Writer, 7 for Todd Klein for Best Letterer, and 3 for Best Ongoing Series, among many others. So, Amanda, this is almost like the cream of the crop, isn't it?
Yeah, I think on a lot of all-time best lists, Sandman definitely shows up, and I've met several people who this is the only graphic novel they've ever read, owing partially to Gaiman's popularity as, like, a prose writer. So they come from having read American Gods or something, and they try Sandman just based on his reputation.
Okay, so Amanda, I know if you've already read this. This is my first time. So for the most part, I'm gonna let you take the lead and you ask me questions. I think we just take it from there. But I do want to ask you one important question.
Yeah.
When is the first time you ever heard of Neil Gaiman?
Reading Sandman was the first time I'd ever heard of him, and I didn't at the time appreciate that he'd written novels as well. Right. Sandman was actually, the graphic novels were passed around at my summer camp when I was like 12 or 13, so 1997-ish. And we burned through all of them pretty fast, like 2 or 3 weeks. I think we all read all of them. And a few years later, I read some of his novels and didn't appreciate that it was the same writer. And I think it wasn't until I saw the movie, like, Stardust, where Gaiman was involved with the story a little bit, that I realized it was the same guy who'd done all of these things. And in retrospect, I should have realized, because he does a lot of sort of meta fiction, pseudo mythology type stories.
Right.
But yeah, so I was pretty young when I started getting his stories into my head, before I appreciated that it was the same guy doing all of it.
Okay. Okay. So, and what do you think of him as a writer? Like, I know you love Sandman, but what do you think of him as a writer overall?
So I'm tempted to call him a little bit of like a one-trick pony. But I mean, I don't have any tricks, so like I can't really pick on him that much. I just feel like he's a very organic writer who always is revisiting these same themes and is always sort of rebuilding pantheons. And I'm like, I would love to read something by him that feels completely different. But I'm okay with the one feeling that I get from everything he reads, which is sort of dreamy and pensive and melancholy. Yeah. I would love for him to make me angry or something, you know?
Right.
Like, does he even have it in him to make me angry? I don't know.
Well, he is very British, so maybe no. So, the first time I ever heard of Neil Gaiman, I was about 21. I was working at the airport, and I worked with this Native American dude named Fernando Enciso. That was his name. And we were talking about comic books. And, like, you know, most of my comic book reading at that point was mostly superheroes, right? And he said, have you ever read Mr. Punch? I'm like, no, I've never. What the fuck is that? He was like ran by this dude named Neil Gaiman. He's like one of the greatest comic book writers of all time. And me being like an asshole, like, I never fucking heard of him, so I don't know how great he is. And like, I hate when people do that, and I don't know why I was like that, but.
No, you're right. Like when people, you know, sometimes when people sell something too hard, or when they sell something based on a reputation that you don't know about, it's a little hard to take them seriously.
Maybe, but like I know better than to be flippant because I'm usually the one trying to hard sell people. But I guess he just caught me in a bad mood that day. So anyway, I read it and it was great. It was weird. It was kind of sad. It was drawn by Dave McKean, who does all the covers, by the way, for Sandman. But it's completely drawn by him. And like I remember, like, oh, and it like stuck with me. And I don't think I've never read anything from him until I was listening to something or reading something, and someone suggested a book called American Gods. I read a synopsis of it. Like, oh shit, this sounds cool. So I read it. One of my favorite books of all time. Then, like, I looked up the author, like, oh, I remember this guy. So I just started looking up other stuff about him. I read American Gods. I read Ocean at the End of the Lane. I've read Stardust. I've read Anansi Boys at this point. So, like, I would never call myself a big Neil Gaiman fan. But within the last 6 or 7 years, now I'm looking back, maybe I am a little bit.
I mean, I think he's a mainstream enough author. Like, are there Stephen King fans? Most people have read a lot of Stephen King books just because they're out there, but like...
Good point.
Like, I think when you reach some level of notoriety, you don't have fans, you only have super fans.
Okay.
Like Spider-Man doesn't have fans because everybody knows Spider-Man and thinks he's pretty cool, but there are Spider-Man, like, super fans.
I like to challenge you a bit about him being a one-trick pony. I don't think his problem that he's a one-trick pony. I think his problem is that he fit all the ideas of everything into one fucking story every damn time.
So it's more, you would describe it more as an issue of, like, he can't choose just one thing and focus on it for a whole story.
Exactly.
He's got to do like all the ideas in every story in case that's the only book of his you've ever read.
Exactly. And it's like now that I've read Sandman, I think I told you this before, is I kind of wish I would have read this first before I've read his other stuff.
Mm.
Because in a lot of ways, this book feels derivative. Let me make this clear before I get some hate mail. I think this is great. but I've read a lot of similar stuff by him. So as great as I think it does feel like his other work, which I just happened to read first, and you can see like the stuff he's interested in, right? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like he American Gods, and he has a new book on Norse mythology, deals heavily with Norse mythology, and this book towards the end is heavy with Norse mythology. Well, like those characters are people, shoot, like you said before, Lucifer, right? That's a paragraph, and that's interesting within itself that it became his own series.
Right. This throwaway idea that, Gaiman comes up with this version of Lucifer, and just that idea is enough to generate a full spin-off. Actually, I feel like almost all of the characters that we would talk about in these first 4 volumes get spin-offs at some other point that other people write, because like every single idea he throws out is like a seed of a whole other story. And he never just plants one seed and goes like all the way with it.
Like, I think that's the problem. I don't like. It's just like if he just take one thread and just follow it through. But again, like I said, it's like everything I've ever read by him is 5 different genres in one. Every time. If you read American Gods, that's clearly fantasy, but it's also kind of like cyberpunky. Stuff like that, and it's also like dreamy and surreal. Also, it's metaphysical.
Maybe a good way to start talking more about the Sandman we read specifically would be to talk about. I think this really stands out for having more horror elements than some of his other stuff, especially in like the first 2 volumes.
Right.
I was really struck by. Yeah, I mean, coming back and rereading this, I was struck by how much of it I kind of ignored when I was younger. I don't even think I understood 50% of the story the first time I read it. I think I just let a lot of the details kind of pass me by. And also the first time I read it, it was the first comic I'd ever read.
Well, that's a hell of an introduction to comic books, I tell you.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have known who any of the characters he visited were. I didn't know who Constantine was. I didn't know who the Martian Manhunter was. I didn't know who,
Mr. Miracle.
Dr. Destiny. I didn't know, who, Swamp Thing was. I hadn't any context, and I think I didn't even know enough to be scared of what I was reading, but this past time I was really struck by like how intense everything was, and not in a way that was, I think maybe if we were to talk about the Calliope story.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So do you want to start there? Because we'll be jumping back and forth. Hopefully everybody read this with us. So we'll be jumping back and forth. Let's start with Calliope.
Okay. I just think that's such a good example of like what could otherwise be gratuitous rape.
Yeah. So what do you want to start with this? Because, I'm a man, so I'm treading real carefully on this one. But I will say it might be the single best issue in all 4 volumes. Because it touches on something that, like, makes me uncomfortable. So, Amanda, what do you think of Calliope? What do you think of that story particularly?
Well, so I like what you were saying about this story being the one we could relate to the most, because in the first issue, there's horror that I can't personally relate to. But the Calliope story of the writer making a deal to buy a muse so that he can write a follow-up novel, like this idea of sort of bartering some piece of your morality away for like infinite creativity was like a little more accessible from both points of view. Like I could imagine being a person who's so afraid of not being able to create something that I might do something terrible and tell myself I would just do it once. And I could also like, come on, like I work in an industry with a bunch of men who at some level are taking credit for my work all the time. So it seemed like such an accessible idea. And it also seemed like it was really telling us something about Neil Gaiman personally as a writer.
Right.
And I also just love that that this rape wasn't included as a way to show like, oh, the villain is such a bad guy. Look at this bad thing he's doing. And then you turn the page and like, it wasn't just an example. It was like really crucial to the story. And it was given like the full issue, like the full 20 pages or so to like sit with this idea and think about the consequences and to see the consequences. I just, when people talk about censorship, they're like, oh, like we can't have horror in stories. We can't have anything bad. It's like you can, you just have to give it room to breathe, I guess.
Well, I just want to say this. I don't think rape is right. I think rape is absolutely wrong and horrendous.
I'm so sorry that you have to say that.
Well, I have to because I just want to say when I read this, right?
Yeah.
There's a part of me that was like, you know what? I might be tempted by this. As a person that tries to write and create, and like you have those moments of just like, I can't, nothing will come out, nothing, I can't think of anything, right? And you don't have to be creative. It could be anything that you're doing, right? You would love to be a savant at whatever the fuck you're doing, right? And you're just not. And most people aren't. Like, but like, shit, even if you was a janitor, when you want to be the best janitor ever?
I was just about to say, there are some days where I've sat there and been like, who do I have to kill to find the motivation to wash my dishes? Right? Like,
yeah.
like being alive, being an adult is hard. Being offered an easy path is so tempting.
And like, and as horrifying as it is, I'm reading this like, this kind of a sweet deal. Like, and then like, oh God, what the fuck am I thinking? Like, it is just like you could honestly understand from the character, the main character point of view, the guy, as in he thought maybe he was only going to do this once, maybe twice, right? But it's almost like a drug.
Yes.
And you just can't stop. Like no matter how much you think you're going to stop, you become reliant on this thing. So like, he lies to himself like most people do when they do something terrible, right? To make this okay.
Yeah.
Like
we get to see like the rationalization as he goes from treating her as like sort of a person to like definitely not a person. Like it describes him moving her to a different house almost as though she's like a package.
And like he even says, like she's not even a person; she's a thing, and
Yeah.
she's clearly a living being, whether she's like mythical or not. And it's so horrifying. And like the way he describes, like Neil Gaiman is very vivid in his description when he says she bites her lip like a child to quit from screaming in pain. I think was the line. Just that phrase, like a child, put it in so much perspective on how horrible of a thing that he's doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I could kind of see it. And that's terrible. And I wouldn't do it. Like, God, no, I would never do it. You know what I'm saying? But, like, I get the temptation. I really, really do. And, like, I feel bad. And I wonder is maybe that's the point of the story a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a reflection on us humans in general, especially on men, right? Like, because like she says, I'm just not a receptacle for your seed. And I'm pretty sure a lot of women feel that way in real life, even when it's not rape. Just like there's this, and I don't know if it's on purpose, but it is the strong undercurrent of men using women, for their own means to an end.
Yeah,
And it's super uncomfortable, but somehow super relatable.
I think it's just a really skillfully done story. I can't say enough about. Well, I think it might be interesting to talk about this story that we were talking about the author and the muse Calliope. It barely featured the main character of the entire series at all.
Right.
The story was ostensibly, it was included because it's on this theme of like creating and writing and storytelling, but like it was also included just because Calliope was Morpheus's ex-girlfriend.
And apparently something bad happened.
Mm.
Like apparently Morpheus doesn't have a good track record with women.
Yeah.
He's kind of a frat boy,
Okay, so what actually, at this point in the series, what do we know about Morpheus? Like, what kind of guy would you say he is?
Oh God, number one, he looks like either Neil Gaiman or Robert Smith, depending on who draws him. That's one thing.
Or maybe Neil Gaiman wishes he looked like
Robert Smith.
Yeah.
That's one thing, but he's mopey. He's detached, yet present at all times. He's definitely vindictive.
Mm.
And very powerful, while also being kind of sad all the fucking time. He's the ultimate emo. He is the ultimate fucking emo. And just like an actual emo, there's no real reason why he's so fucking emo. He just is. Like, there's no reason for him to be like that. Like, his sister is deaf, right? And she's about as plucky as you can get for the most part.
Mm.
She's a plucky goth girl. So there's no reason, if Death can be plucky, I don't understand why Dream is so fucking, sad all the time. He's such a, like in some ways, he's such a fucking child. Like, like, go away, I don't want to be bothered right now.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's, maybe because dreams are so emotional and weird and surreal, maybe the god of that realm can't really choose to be any other way.
Good point.
Or maybe he is just going through a phase. Like, well, no, because I'll be interested to hear what you think the overall story is going to be like, but it's entirely possible that this is a story of like, an emo kid learning to be happy or something, right?
Right, exactly. I'm not for sure. I mean, I really do like the character. I like that he's super flawed in some very terrible ways. And you usually don't get that in stories, especially comic book stories. There's always an excuse when a good guy does something terrible in comic book stories.
Yeah.
There's really no excuse for some of the terrible shit he does here. Like, like he just did it.
Well, so what are some of the things that you remember him doing? Like, let's enumerate his sins.
Well, look, I guess the biggest and most present is the fact that he locked away his black girlfriend for 10,000 years in hell for rejecting him. I'd say that's pretty terrible.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, kinda. And I love, we just jumping all over the place now, is like, the only reason he frees her is because somebody else says it. He himself still don't quite understand what the big deal is. Like, on why he should, but I guess, even when he apologizes, even when he, talks to other people, he well, I've heard, I guess maybe I overreacted, I don't know. Like, I guess, fine, I think
he just doesn't appreciate the time scale going on there. Like, to him, this thing just happened the other day, and she's been there for, 10,000 years. Jeez.
When you say that, right? Rita was locked up on that dumpster in Power Rangers for 10,000 years.
Mm,
I know she had
yeah.
to have like a terrible top Charlie horse. Anyway,
You see what happens when you lock women up for that long.
yeah, exactly.
The second half of this series is going to be
now you're just wrecking shit.
Yeah, in a giant mech.
No, but yeah, that right, like, and it also seems like, okay, so this is what I find strange, right? When we get to the serial killer story, right?
Yes.
And the big bad wolf almost rapes what's her name?
Rose?
Rose. He doesn't punish him. He just puts him to sleep. Like, he could have clearly punished that dude. He could have clearly killed that dude.
Mm-hmm.
But his only concern was saving her. He don't really care what that motherfucker does. You know what I'm saying? So he just puts him to sleep and gives him a nice dream on top of that.
Mm.
Even though we just see him, even though we know he kills children at Disney, kills and rapes children at Disney World, and is about to kill and rape the main protagonist of this particular story, Dream does nothing to him, but gives him a good dream and just walks out with Rose.
Yeah, Dream has a very, like, personal morality. Like, if it doesn't directly impact him, he's not going to judge or interfere with you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that in the story.
I wonder if there's something in his past where he's been punished for trying to, like, play God or something.
But it just seems like he's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Apathetic? Is that the word I'm looking for? Like, towards, like, people when it doesn't concern him?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good word. I think, God, I'm tempted to say ataraxic is a word too, but that's like $1 million word. We don't need to use that. I don't even know if that means exactly what I think it means. I'm just, making stuff up.
Okay, let's do you have the books in front of you?
I do.
All right, let's structure this a little bit. Let's structure this a bit more than what we're doing, okay? Let's go by this not quickly, but let's go by this like volume by volume, right?
Okay.
Let's start with Prelude and Nocturnes and Nocturnes. Prelude and Nocturnes. I'm going to say that right. Is one of those things that you say in your head that you don't say out loud.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very interesting like beginning, right? It's like Dream's been locked up almost 70 years.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about that? What do you think about this first trade? Its first few issues.
I think it's very interesting to have such a passive main character.
Right.
And to be getting the story of someone, like, essentially we learn about Dream because Gaiman tells us stories about other people, and then we see what Dream does to them. And it's a very, like, backwards, complicated way of learning about a character. I think it's very interesting that we get sort of the whole history of this secret society that has tried to capture Death and accidentally captures Dream instead. For almost an extra big issue, almost 2 issues worth of pages. And Dream is just passive. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything. It's such a unexpected way to start a story.
It's interesting that with him being like locked up, the effect it has on certain people. Like some people, a lot of those stories are heartbreaking. As like the girl who's like 50, but she still thinks she's 8. And
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, we'll come back to that.
Oh, we will? Okay.
Because that's Rose's grandmother.
No, not her. That's the one that was 17. But there was an 8-year-old.
Oh yeah.
Who every time she wakes up, she like reads. She always says, "Read me a story."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really sad. And Rose's grandmother, Unity, she at some point she was raped, and she remembered having a child, but not really. And it's just sad. It's is heartbreaking. And Neil Gaiman is not afraid to make things sad. Again, something I really do appreciate.
Mm-mm.
Is like his just no hold punches. Like he doesn't pull punches at all when it comes to this stuff. When we get to, you know what? I guess we just should talk about the what's his name? Dr. Midnight, what's his name?
Dr. Destiny?
Dr. Destiny, yes. I guess we should talk about that issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's by far one of the most fucked up issues of anything. That's one of the most fucked up things I think I've ever read, period.
Right, and this is the one that everyone remembers in retrospect as the diner story, right?
Right, the diner story. And so, how do we talk about this, right? He's in there, and he basically for 24 hours, actually 21 hours, make these people do some of the most terrible stuff imaginable.
Well, and it's interesting because he's driving the entire world crazy. There's chaos everywhere.
Right.
But we only see what's happening in this one isolated spot with these characters. And I feel like because we see the same characters for the entire period of time, it makes you feel the impact of what he does to them or makes them do even stronger. You know, another way that a storyteller might have done this would have been to have like a montage of generic horrible things happening everywhere.
Right.
And that wouldn't have been as scary.
But this is so impactful. It's well, who do you think the main character of that story? Like, I honestly thought it was the waitress. It seemed like it was going to be the waitress, right? It seemed like she was the main character. But then, like, that kind of falls by the wayside, maybe like 6 pages in.
Well, she's sort of like the entry character. And I think it's interesting that she's an amateur writer.
Right.
And that, once again, Neil Gaiman has sort of like this, he's a writer, you write what you know, you write characters who are writers because you can relate to them. So, I mean, like, she was like the, kind of like the entry character, the one who like leads you into the story. But after that, I don't know if it's, I don't know if anybody's really the main character.
No, so in this
Oh no, I know.
Who?
The reader is the main character.
Oh Lord. Okay. So anyway, who do we have? We have the waitress. I can't think of anybody named right now. Right? There's a waitress who's an amateur writer. There's this truck driver that she knows who wife killed herself, and it was mainly his fault because he left like a whole case of liquor there for her and just left for the weekend, knowing she would drink herself to death. Mm-hmm. There's this lesbian girl who's waiting for her girlfriend who never shows up. Mm-hmm. There's this couple, like almost like
a power couple.
Like I'm like this power couple. Then there's this one guy who's there for an interview. This is one young guy there for an interview. And every time one of them want to get up and leave, they find another reason to stay, and the hours go on, and they're still there. And like it's just he breaks these people down. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the one that sticks with me the most. Out of all the terrible things that happened in this issue, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell you the most fucked up one.
Okay.
In my opinion.
What got to you?
Come to find out, the trucker and the waitress was having an illicit affair. Mm-hmm. And that's partially why the wife killed herself. But he also went to jail after that, and he was like, "Hey, I heard about your son." He's telling this to the waitress that he's been having an affair with. He was selling his ass for a pack of cigarettes. And he was like, "Yeah, I did it too." As in, like, he had sex with her son. And it's just like, oh, what the, and it's just one of those things where, like, I backed away, like, whoa. What?
Well, and that's not even, like, him telling her that is clearly influenced by the circumstances, but if that happened, no one made him do that. Like,
Right,
that wasn't
exactly.
under the influence of this. That was just somebody being horrible.
Well, no, it was all confessions, right? So everybody, like the one half of the power couple
Hmm.
was like she admitted that she had sex with a corpse and made out with it after like blood filled its mouth.
Hmm.
So it's all true confessions, but it's just the most terrible shit that terrible people does, and it's like the real and like there's horror in that, and it's just like when he says that, it is just like I don't know, it just I don't like again, no one made him do that, he just did it, but it's just like
Well, right, yeah, it's they're confessing to things that are horrible, but like they did the horrible things willingly. They're just talking about them now.
and again
Like, that's what makes it so much worse.
and it's that thing where like Amanda, let me ask you a question. Would you ever want to be caught to where you had the force to tell your deepest, darkest secrets? Like,
Yeah, no, of course not.
I was like, I almost needed a shower after that. It just,
Mm-hmm.
the orgy, the cutting off the finger in like sacrifice.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. Then like at the end, they disemboweled each other, and the one woman stuck a spike through her eye,
Mm-hmm.
saying she could see the eternal light. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know, like one does.
Yeah, like one does. Okay. So I think, and I guess, there's also the Nadia story that we already covered about him sending his girlfriend to hell for 10,000 years. Also like the fact that like since he is an abstract thing, he appears different to everybody that sees him.
Mm-hmm.
Like to Nadia, he's a black man. To Martian Manhunter, he's the scariest fucking dream guy I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So he appears different to everybody. And I guess what we're saying is our interpretation of him, or is it supposed to be our interpretation of him?
Well, I think it would be Neil Gaiman's interpretation of him, which would be an emo rock star from the 80s.
Apparently. So is there anything else you'll want to talk about Preludes and Nocturnes?
Well, I think it's worth mentioning the last story, which is the first time we meet Death.
Right.
And just how this final issue of the first volume is just sort of like a complete turning point from this weird, intense horror fetch quest for tools that he pretty much never uses again.
Right.
And then we get this sort of like pivot into learning more about Dream's family and what he actually is and how. And honestly, it's kind of the first time we've seen Dream do something normal, like have a conversation. We've had issues where he's silent. We've had issues where he shows up for like 2 panels and gives somebody an eternal nightmare. But this is like the first issue where we just see him hanging out.
What do you think of Death?
Death is quite clearly like the best part of all of this. And I've said before that Neil Gaiman has incredibly admirable restraint for using her as sparingly as he does. He has her visit the stories often enough that you get kind of like these hints of who she is, but he doesn't overuse the character to the point where he ruins her. She's the best.
And like, is this the first instant of like the plucky goth stereotype?
I mean, I don't think so.
Like, is there like another like plucky goth that you know of before her? Like, I know there's a few afterwards, right? Like, but is this like the first one that like did he invent that trope?
I mean, I don't think so. Like, I actually thought it was the other way around. I thought the impression people had that, goths were sad all the time was kind of wrong.
Well, I think it is wrong, but I think like within the story, right? Like I don't remember like this ever. Like I can't think of anything like in my knowledge of pop culture before what? Because this is what 1989.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything before this where there's been like a goth girl that was like happy. Because she's clearly happy, but she's also clearly goth.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just strikes me because she's very unique in that way. Like, because she's pale and black like her brother,
Mm-hmm.
but her personality is completely different. And the fact that she, like, I've never thought about this, right? She come in and like, have you seen Mary Poppins? And he was like, no, I haven't seen Mary Poppins. Like, oh yeah, that's right. You've been locked up most of the 20th century. There's a bunch of stuff you don't understand, right?
It is interesting that, like you were saying, Dream takes on the shape of like whoever he is. It's interesting that like death is the aspect of the endless that spends the most time around individuals, around humanity, and she's the one that feels most like a real character.
Right. And you would think death of all people would be depressed, right? Or sad or emo as it should, because
Mm-hmm.
she deals in death. But from her point of view, death is not necessarily like being dead is not necessarily a bad thing, and it's nothing you should be sad about per se.
Well, yeah, and I think the hint of that is also she's drawn wearing an ankh usually,
Right.
um, which I thought was a symbol for life, not death.
I think so. Huh? Fuck, you don't know.
And I think she also says at some point that she meets everyone twice.
Yeah.
So she's also there when you're born.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's kind of, I think what's so interesting about her as a character is like that extra layer, right? Like the plucky goth, the god of death and life. I don't know. It seems so obvious. It's hard to imagine the character any other way.
Right. So
Sort of like iconic, like as soon as you see it.
Right. So, is that it for this volume? Is there anything
Yeah.
else?
No, that's
Okay.
plenty.
Yeah.
Especially considering that that's arguably the weakest of all of them.
Well, I don't know about that. Well, okay, let's move on to the Dollhouse. And like this, he almost completely switched genres a little bit. Overall, this book seems like an anthology, right?
Yes.
Like a lot of it does seem like an anthology. Like I think it would make a good anthology series. We're not doing we're not doing Fantasy Casting until the third episode of this,
Mm-hmm.
but but yeah. So but yeah, like a lot of this seems, and like the first volume seems almost anthology. Like this is his first arc where he's like doing a complete story, right?
This does feel a little bit more
Structured,
like a complete story
yeah.
than the first issue. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this deals with Rose and her mother going to England to meet who we find is one of the victims of the sleeping, or whatever it's called, and it's Unity, who fell asleep when she was 17. She is now 90 years old and insanely rich.
Well, it's hard to spend money when you're asleep.
Exactly. You just keep accumulating it. So, Amanda, what do you have to say about this? You're supposed to be asking me questions. What do you?
So it's funny because I do remember that The Doll's House is one of the volumes that people don't look back on as favorably.
Really?
But yeah, the first people usually when people try to convince you to read this book, they frequently say, "Okay, it's amazing, but I'm sorry, like it takes a while to, like the first two volumes aren't as good."
I've heard that with the first one, but never the second one. But go ahead.
Okay, I know I've heard other people say that the second one isn't as good, but I think it's because the nature while this volume does have an overall story about Rose and her family, it also has these little standalone stories in it that I think people forget come through in this volume.
Right.
Like I always forget when I reread this that we meet Hob Gadling for the first time in volume 2. Right. And then the opening of this volume is also we get the story about Nada and her people in the Glass City. Like we do kind of get like this background information that I think a lot of people forget comes through in this volume that is like crucial to the overall big story. Sorry. What I'm trying to say is when you reread it, The Doll's House is better, but the first time you read through it, it's a little bit of a slog.
You see, I didn't think so. I was kind of like I was really into this story. I was like, I love that it's like it becomes a sitcom at some point where Rose moves into this house when she looks for her brother. You got all these quirky characters,
Right?
and I just want to say I really love Hal.
Mm-hmm.
I love how she's writing, and she was like, yeah, everybody kind of weird except for Hal. He seems normal, and then he just busts in a dress and wig and all dramatic, then leaves and slams the door. I was like, this is great. I love this. I would love to live there.
Right. And her neighbors, the Spider Women and Ken and Barbie.
The Spider Women, who we can't figure out sisters or lovers. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
lovers. I think, but I'm not for sure.
And then this also has the stories about Rose's brother, who was held in a little separate pocket of dreaming by a few nightmares.
Yes, and one of the Sandmen, the Jack Kirby invented Sandman to be exact. Interesting background, that particular Sandman is actually the offspring of Hawkman and Hawkwoman.
Weird.
I know. But apparently he does come back. He does come back later. Because Hawkman and Hawkwoman, the whole thing is like they get resurrected a lot in some DC canon, depending on who you ask. Whatever. But they talk about the serial killer convention, right? That right there was entertaining. And I think I said this on the Lost episode. Is like British writers, especially comic book writers, have this thing about where like they think of these things that are ridiculous and wouldn't be possible, but somehow on a certain level, it seems normal and seems like it should exist in a weird way. And like, yeah, like I know serial killers wouldn't have a convention, but that almost seemed like they should. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like it's just like of course they have a. It's just like of course they have a I give you an example. This is a weird example, right? Like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, right? I was 15 till I realized a pet detective wasn't an actual thing. Because it seemed like they should have been, right? Like a guy that helped find pets. Like, yeah, that's a thing, right? That's absolutely a thing. No, it's not. It's not. It's not a thing at all. But like, it seemed like it should be a thing. So like, British writers have this thing about that where they like think of these odd concepts and always put them in like these mundane situations. So like the setup is there's this convention at this hotel, right? And it's a serial convention with a C, but it should be with an S because it's all of these serial killers. And just, Amanda, now I know this is like 1989, 1990, right? But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think this is Neil Gaiman commentary on like
comic book conventions?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Of course it is.
They had panels. My favorite was women in serial killing.
Yeah.
That they're like she was really upset that the stereotype was we all gotta be black widows or nurses of mercy. Like, no, damn it, we are not all that. I'm a woman and I'm a serial killer and I'm proud of it. So it's just there's just a lot there to unpack. What was his name? The Big Bad Wolf or whoever. clearly talking about Disney, how like he goes there and there's so many people he can grab a child, molest them, kill them, and how Disney covers it up.
Yeah, I think in the story, I think he's Funland, but
Funland, yes.
we know it's Disney.
Yeah, and he has like these. It's supposed to be Mickey ears, but they're like in devil horn shape. But it's clearly supposed to be the Mickey Mouse with the ears on it. Yeah, it's. And again, it's this thing where Gaiman does, where he just goes into all these detail on the shit that they do to these children and women and people, and I'm just like if I wrote this, I don't know if I would be comfortable writing that out loud. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I would be comfortable putting these things to pages as he does.
To go back to what we were saying at the beginning, the serial killer convention, like, that could be a standalone image series right now.
Right, exactly.
Like, like the main character would be like the person who like, runs like talent booking or something, and like it would just be an ongoing series about just that idea. And I can even imagine that, he came up with this at a comic book convention. It was like, man, these people are weird. I don't even know, like, they could all be serial killers, and I would just sit here and think it was normal. And then he's like, bam, I got it. And then just throws it out here and then never goes back to it. And that would be enough story for an entire standalone thing.
And like, there's enough memorable characters within this like section that could have like not their own books that could come back and never come back. Like we said, Funland, the Doctor. Like there's a couple of characters that you could absolutely see coming back, but never really do.
Yeah.
Look, there's a villain within this piece that is killed off as soon as he introduced, and that's the Corinthian. Like, you okay?
Yeah.
You sure?
The Corinthian has a standalone series.
Really?
Of course, I told you almost every character or idea from the beginning of these gets mined for use later.
But he murders that man. Wait, no, it's comic
yeah,
books.
no, it's comic books. Like, nobody's really dead.
Yeah, but no, the Corinthian, like that character, man, that is a awesome villain.
Right, but you're right. Neil Gaiman throws him away almost immediately.
And no, when he take off his glasses, right? He has mouth. He has mouth for eyes.
Teeth for eyes. Yeah.
Do you start blinking a lot, or is it just me? Do you like start rubbing your eyes, or that's just the thing I do when I look at that? Like, I think
that's just you.
Really?
I think he's a nightmare for you. I always just thought it was weird and kind of funny.
Oh, okay.
if you found that scary or disconcerting, I think it's a you nightmare.
Oh yeah, I definitely found it disconcerting. It's more disconcerting than a demon with mouth on her titties. Like,
it's true.
It's more disconcerting than that.
Okay, I'll take that back. I do think it's creepy when the mouths that are his eyes start talking also. When they're just there and they just look like, fucked up eyes, I'm okay with it. But when they start talking, that's a little weird.
But yeah, the fact that he's and I think we talked about this as in like at one point he goes to Atlanta, Georgia, and was looking for like some rough trade. And I told you Atlanta has a very large gay population, and at some points, depending on the year, it's the gayest place in the world. And I'm wondering, was he like working with that knowledge, or was it just a damn coincidence?
Yeah. Whether that nugget dropped by the Corinthian was it the Corinthian who said that, or was it the other guy?
It was the Corinthian.
Okay.
So yeah, she finds her brother. Oh, okay, so we should talk about the fact that Rose is a vortex of some sort.
Yeah, she's a dream vortex.
And she enters into her neighbor's dreams, and the Spider Sisters, they have two weird, significant, significant dreams about each other, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, the Ken and Barbie, Ken having a typical male dream about money, sex, and power.
Mm-hmm.
And Barbie is basically dreaming that she's Shira.
She's like half Shira, half like Lord of the Rings.
Right. You know, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Battle Pug in a way.
I feel like that's like the highest compliment you could pay Battle Pug is it reminds me of that dream Barbie had in the Sandman series.
Yeah, like it, and it's awesome, right? And it's so pure and innocent. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to her husband's, like.
Well, and also like very rich and creative.
Right.
Because we know like absolutely nothing about Barbie or Ken as characters. And to know that like under the surface there is like absolutely nothing more to Ken. And then Barbie has this incredibly vivid, detailed, Baroque, like super fancy, pretty, like she has like a rich fantasy life. It's like, it's just so much characterization indirectly.
Right.
Like we know so much about these people without being told anything.
So should we talk about Fiddler's Green?
Yeah.
Isn't he awesome?
Yeah, he is.
And doesn't he look like Teddy Roosevelt, or is it just me? He does like Theodore
No,
Roosevelt.
he does. He looks like Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay, good.
And I love that he's like he's like the human version of a dream about a place.
Right.
Like that's it. There's like no other way to explain it. It doesn't make sense, but it also makes
complete sense. Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, of course. Got it. Yeah, he was such a
he's such a delight. That's the best word I could pick for it, is he's just a delight.
Yeah. I think I was going to say I think it's interesting that we meet multiple nightmares so far.
Right.
And that this is kind of the first like good dream we've met. And I was going to say it's interesting that he like actually tries to actively help people. And then I was going to say that it's interesting that the Corinthian tries to actively hurt people. And that you pointed out earlier that Dream sort of actively doesn't interact or judge people. Like he doesn't go out of his way to do anything. And it seems interesting that all of these creations of his, when he's gone, when he's, locked up for 70 years, suddenly go out and want to do stuff now that he's not there to control them.
So are you saying it's almost like these are certain aspects of his personality that are leaking out? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. I just thought it was an interesting contrast that
right.
that almost like maybe the reason he was upset that Fiddler's Green got out was because he was trying to do good. Not because, like maybe that is specifically what they were doing to disobey him. Because they're like magical embodiments of things, like obviously they don't always have to be in the same spot in the dreaming. They can, like what could possibly be disallowed for the human version of a place, a dream about a place? Like what could he possibly do that's not allowed, even by the laws of physics?
Right.
Oh, the thing that he did that was bad actually was maybe that he had free will.
And how dare he have free will? We know how Dream feel about your free will and your opinions. He gives a fuck about them.
Yeah. Like he's like, we're supposed to just be like we're supposed to be dreams. We're not supposed to like actually do anything.
He seems to have a very rigid idea of what his job is.
Mm-hmm.
And any deviation from that really annoys him, aggravates him.
Yeah. And similarly, they the reason that Rose and Fiddler's Green go through the serial convention was because they were trying to find her little brother who was being held hostage by these other nightmares, who again were creating their own tiny dream realm in the image of the dreaming to do to have their own free will and do their own thing. And it seemed like he wasn't angry that these nightmares were out terrorizing people. He was angry that they dared to decide to do it themselves.
Again, he's the most godlike in the way he acts. I know technically he's not a god, but he is very Greek godlike in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you want to move on to the next volume?
I mean, I think we just should touch on a few things.
Yeah.
The fact that apparently Unity was raped by, who's that, Despair? Is that Despair? No. Desire.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Desire is somehow plotting against Dream in some way.
Yeah.
And come to find out that Rose and Unity are their kin somehow, and he goes to Desire like, who impregnated her? And Desire was like, well, you know. And I also love Desire because Desire is either a man or a woman, depending on the panel.
Yeah.
And they go out their way to say he, she, or it, because it changes depending on who, I guess, looking at her and how her or he feels at that moment.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing how it was the 80s and that was like not even a big deal?
Nobody cared. All now people care.
If this was re-released right now with like a different title and people didn't know what it was, I think people would complain.
Oh, definitely.
They'd be like, how dare you make me read this? And it's like, dude, it's like one character out of a trillion.
And also just, because I'll take the other side of the task, it's not thrown in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just there. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's there for the story context. It's just not there for a pat on the back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. Just like, it'll be like, comes together, this social justice warrior bullshit. You're trying to push this agenda on me. Whatever. It's great. Because it makes sense, right? It makes sense that, like, in fact, Gaiman does this a lot through this story. Like, gender roles and, like, the role men and women play and how it's reversed and how, like, men can be terrible. It's all in there, right? And this, like you said, this is 89, 90, and no one cared. Nobody.
Well, no, people cared. They loved it.
Well,
it won awards.
Well, I mean, care as in like there's not hate mail flooding in.
Right. It wasn't necessarily. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't have the letters columns from back then. Maybe it did. Maybe it was just slower because they didn't have Twitter. But
reason 1021 Twitter should be destroyed. Anyway, go ahead.
But no, he includes all those elements in a way that's pretty natural. Although maybe this is the point where I need to ask you, like, there's no black people except for that girl he dated.
I don't care.
Okay. And they're from like pseudo like ancient African warrior thing. Like,
I don't care.
Okay.
Look, I feel bad. I feel like I'm a terrible black person, but like, look, if I don't need that in my story just for it to be good, and if it's not in my story, I'm not complaining. Like, it's not like it's culturally insensitive. Like, sometimes maybe it's best not to have that shit in there, because sometimes when motherfuckers try to put that shit in there, they don't know what the fuck they talking about.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine, like, them drawing Dream visiting, like, a group of black kids, and he shows up and he's dressed like MC Hammer or something?
That's my point. So, like, Neil Gaiman is a white pasty Englishman. I don't expect him to write stories about me, or nor do I need him to have my representation in there. If he did, fine. If he don't, that's okay too. That shit right there, it just, nobody should be forced to even think about that. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, you tell the story you want to tell. And they involve black people, fine. Hell, if you want to tell a story with nothing but black people, not have white people in it, that's fine too. But no, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I just don't.
Okay. I was just curious because
it's not like that. It's not like they're in New York the whole time and all you see is. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a scenario where I would be upset, but I can't think of none right now. But no, I don't. I didn't even know this. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even know this. I thought it was cool that I think he did the best thing he could. The fact that he appears black to Nadia was enough for me.
Yeah.
That was enough. I ain't need nothing else. I ain't need him to have like young black kids in there talking 1989 hip hop slang. Oh boy, that would have been great. That would have been wonderful. That's exactly what I want in my metaphysical story about the personification of an abstract idea. Like,
well, I'm glad I asked you. Obviously, it didn't bother me, but I had never noticed until this read through that, it was super white.
I said it's fine. What the fuck ever. Whatever. Like again, like if we're the audience, right? If we're the audience, and let's say the audience is mostly white, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is just how we see Dream because the audience is mostly white. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Maybe since we're American, maybe that's just how we see it. You get what I'm trying to say? Because clearly, other people see him in different ways. Some people see him as a goddamn cat.
Yep.
Like so. So what else? But yeah, that and so we touched on that. We touched on like the Corinthian being terrible but awesome. The fact that like him and the other two serial killers tortured this dude in the swamp. And like they drive back and they just like the coolest dudes on the planet. Like the top is down, the doctor in the back like rubbing his hand is all bloody and shit. Corinthian just driving, arm all out like yeah. Like oh they look awesome. If they would look cool if I just didn't know what they came back from doing. But I think the other important thing to talk about in this before we move on is the child that Hippolyta has. And Dream says, yeah, that's my kid. He just stayed for like 2 years in the dreaming. So I'll be back for that kid someday. Have a nice life. And like she couldn't understand why she was mad. Like he just didn't get it. Like you killed him. Well, he was already dead. But you killed him. Why are you so angry? You got 2 more years. Does it matter?
Yeah, he's standing there like, well, I'm technically right. What else do you want?
So yeah, that's it. Like the fact that there's a child in play in all of this at some point, and the fact that Desire may be trying to kill him, and the fact that Desire walks on a giant version of him herself. That's it. Let's move on to volume 3. This is basically short stories, right? Like it's very short, and it's nothing but like one issue stories. Now we already talked about one of them, so we both agree that our favorite is Calliope, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your second favorite?
The cats.
Of course.
The story about the cat who traveled to the dreaming to meet the cat version of Morpheus and discovered that if everyone has the same collective dream, they can change reality. And so this cat wanders around trying to make all of the cats have the same dream of them being rulers of the world, of them being giant cats and people being tiny mouse-sized people who worship them and feed them and play games with them. And of course, I remember you said you loved the ending of that because it's like, you can't make cats all do the same thing at the same time.
You want to talk about apathetic? Oh man, cats. Cats are just assholes by nature.
That's actually a really great way to describe Morpheus is cat-like.
Right.
You know, like this whole version of morality where he doesn't care if it doesn't impact him directly, and the whole being moody and bitchy for absolutely no reason, and that actually makes a lot of sense.
Also, this is the one. Well, I don't think I necessarily cried, but this is the one story where I got kind of emotional a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because when she describes like her kittens being killed and how she can hear them, like even though they're far away, and like they're screaming and like them trying to break free and then silence, it just, I don't know, man, it did something to me. Like, animal or not, like losing your children like that, and like how little the humans care, is like, she probably don't even know what happened. She's probably relieved, and she's just sitting there in silent like pain and anguish, looking at the fire, and it's just. And then like they cut to like her talking, and like this mother with her kittens looking at her talk, and it just, I don't know, man, it really did something to me, like in a way I thought it wouldn't.
Animals, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to feel things for animals than for people.
Well, you know me, I'm going on record saying I don't like animals or pets for that matter for a whole lot. So for me, it really hit me in a place, and like I love how they describe animals being in heat, as in like, we all say, oh, she's in heat. Like, you ever seen an animal in heat? Oh, they're in heat, right? But for her, it was actually true love, even though she's never seen dude again.
Yeah.
And she described it in so lovely, like, from my beautiful union came these kittens. But yeah, that story was really fucking good. And like the fact that it has like a tragic ending. And like, yeah, the cats will never do it. But I also love the fact that like it is the cute, adorable white kitten.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, look, honey, it's dreaming, it's twitching its nose. Or what it's dreaming about? It was probably hunting some small animal. Or isn't it cute? And
Mm-hmm. And it's secretly dreaming of murder and world domination. Yeah.
well, the thing is, that's what I'm pretty sure real cats dream about any fucking
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
Do you want to move on?
no, well, I just want to say, was it Hob?
Mm-hmm.
Who's one of my favorite characters. I really loved his story.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, the fact that, like, she was going to kill him and definitely, like, nah, let him live. This will be interesting.
Yeah.
And the fact that they met every 100 years, and you see how the style changed till you
Mm-hmm.
get to 89, and like they in full on 80s gear.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I want. I want in 2099, after we all long dead, that someone pick up and write the next Hob and Sandman meeting. That's what I really want. I love the fact that, like, he goes through all these things, and he doesn't care what Hob does until he get to slavery. He's like, hey, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't do that one. Like, normally I don't care.
Yeah.
But slavery, then I like in 100 years, he's like, yeah, you was right. Like, I could never really, like, get over that. I could never really repay for what I did. Like you was absolutely right about that one. And the fact that he lost his wife
Mm-hmm.
and his kid in a bar fight, and they're like, and Dream was like, do you want to die yet? He's like, oh, shit, death is still a mother's game. Like, yeah. I got so much to live for still.
Yeah.
And the fact that he tells them, like, look, I'll come back in 1989, but it's be as your friend. Like, I'm your friend. And like a child, he's like, I don't have any friends. We're not friends. Like, yeah, okay. Well, if you say so, buddy, then why you keep coming then?
It's interesting that between those two meetings was when Dream was in captivity.
Right.
So I wonder if that was one of the things he was thinking about while he was in captivity. It was like, man, I wonder if I'm going to get out in time to go see this guy. Like, if I'm still stuck in here and I don't show up, he's going to think that I actually am not friends with him.
Right.
Like, I feel like that probably crossed his mind once.
I never thought
and like that
about
made him really like appreciate that there was this guy who was going to be waiting for him. Because like yes, like there were a lot of indicators that Dream was missing, but like none of his siblings came looking for him.
Right.
None of the other gods came looking for him. Hob might have been the first guy to miss him.
Exactly. And
Like, when you joke about like how long, like if I fell down the stairs in my house, how long would it take for somebody to find me and help me?
right. Like
For Dream, it's 100 years.
how long would it be for someone, like, if I had a heart attack, how long would it be for someone found my dead body, right?
Yeah.
But no, yeah, so like that's a really good one.
But then there was a background line in the Hobbes story where we find out that William Shakespeare
Right.
made a deal with Dream, and that the payment was he had to write the play A Midsummer Night's Dream for the actual real fairies.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you something.
Yeah.
I know that particular issue won a lot of awards.
Mm-hmm.
I found that one hard to get through because I came to a realization.
Yeah.
I really don't fucking like Shakespeare.
You liked Shakespeare when we were reading The Vision.
That's different.
that was tragedy, not comedy, right?
Well, not just that. There's not a lot of, like, look. If we speaking in rapper terms, Shakespeare got some hot ass lines. You know what I'm saying? And like in the Vision, they use all the hot lines from that one Shakespeare story. This is a lot more of that book. You know what I'm saying? Like quoted word from word, and I'm just like, I could kind of care less. I mean, look, it's still interesting. Like, I'm not saying it's terrible or nothing, right? I'm not saying that. But just, like, overall, for my taste, I'm just like, I'm not really into Shakespeare. And I've tried, so the closest I've ever been into Shakespeare was watching Leonardo DiCaprio in Romeo plus Juliet.
Well, I was going to say, one of the great benefits of comics is that as you're reading through it and you get to, like, a word bubble that is just like actors reciting dialogue from the play, you can just kind of skip it if you want.
Which I absolutely did, and like, it was okay, it was good. You know what I'm saying? It's
one of those things where like the idea of that story is really great, but like I didn't want to actually sit there and read the comic book version of the play.
Exactly, and like the fact that it won some awards, I'm like, oh man, then it must have won like some stuffy ass Tory awards that I could care less about, maybe. Like,
yeah, but also, this may have been I mean, given the age of this may have been one of the best, earliest, prominent uses of like literature with a capital L in comic books.
Right.
So like, I just joked a few minutes ago about another comic book we read this year that obviously borrowed influences from another Shakespeare story, play. And, we don't even think that's like a big deal now, but the idea that comic books or graphic novels could be real stories, real literature, was not a popular idea for a while.
Right. And like it does have a tinge of tragedy because we learned that Hamlet's son, who's kind of the main character, dies at 11. I mean, not Hamlet's son, but Shakespeare's son. And like if you read it, it says he promised him 2 plays. So is the second play Hamlet? It has to be, right? Like that's what it seemed like it was implying.
Yeah, I think so.
And the fact that he was talking to the fairy lady and he was like, "Well, do you tell him like the price?" Like, and Dream like, "What would it even matter?" And like, I like what he says. He said like the price for getting what you want for the price of getting what you want is having what you want. That's the price, because basically what he's saying, almost wanting it is almost better than having it.
Yeah.
And like that's the price. You know what I'm saying? And like apparently, and clearly there was a price to have because his son like died like at 11, and he was just like, would it even matter if I told him? You know what I'm saying? Would it even matter? Would he has did anything different?
Yeah.
And again, it's that thing. It was like, well, fuck, maybe you should have told him. But again, Dream ain't known for like his moral compass, so you know. All right, is that all the story? No, there's one more, right? There's the boarding school story.
No, that's still to come, I think.
Well, that's not in that vault. Shit, I'm sorry.
Well, that's one of the things I love about this book.
Right.
Is that you get or about this series, about this epic, is that all of these stories get into you and you don't remember where they came from. You don't remember what order they happened in. You don't remember cause and effect necessarily. And it's like, I can't even articulate how much it feels like dreaming to read these books. Let me see. That might have actually been, that couldn't have been back in the doll's house, right?
No, it couldn't have been. No, you're right.
The boy detective story, It Must Still Be to Come.
Yes.
Oh, right. That's when hell is empty.
Right. So
there we go.
Let's get to that. Let's get to this. We're an hour and a half in.
Yeah.
So let's not speed through, but let's make this a little brisk. So, what is it? Destiny call all his siblings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And say, hey, some shit's supposed to be going down, and what we find is that it's Dream going to get Nadia, and it's death that sets him straight. Right? It's desire gets him angry. Then he goes outside. Then he looks for solace in death, and death's like, nah, she's right. You're an asshole. Like you need to go fix that shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you really? He's like, yeah, you do. Okay, I guess. And like we get like this whole issue of build up, right?
Yeah.
He's going to fight Lucifer, and Lucifer it's like, yep, it's time we're gonna fight Death, and we're getting everybody together, and you think it's gonna be this battle. Death is setting all his Dream is setting all his affairs in order. He go visits Hob.
Mm-hmm.
Hob says, hey, ain't you like 99 years early? He's like, hey, I may not be there. Here's a Dream version of this really expensive wine from like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Keep it. And he wakes up and it's on his dresser.
Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, I did too. He talks to everybody in his realm and say, hey, if I go missing and shit gets fucked up again, I will be displeased. I suggest I don't have to go into detail. And they was like, yeah, we understand.
Yeah.
So all that is good.
And it's a very good recap of everything that's happened so far.
Right, because he goes.
You could almost jump in at the beginning of this volume if you didn't, for some reason, have the first three.
Right, and he sends Cain, which we even talk about Cain and Abel, but it's a whole nother 20 minutes. He sends Cain to tell the devil that he's coming, because Dream doesn't believe in sneaking around, which is crazy. And I love the fact that, the devil was like, and Cain like, yo, you can't hurt me now. This mark, God gave it to me. Nobody can hurt me. Yeah, you're right, I can't. But I can skirt that line a little bit. And he kind of just tortures him a little bit without actually hurting him.
Yeah.
And some people, I read somewhere that people felt bad for Cain. Like, oh, fuck Cain. He kept killing his brother. And he made his brother cry. So good on him that he got tortured a little bit. That's what that fucker deserves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have all this build up, like, oh shit, it's about to go down. And I guess it's just the comic book person in me thinking about to be this battle. He gets there and fucking hell is empty.
Yeah.
It is barren. The gate is open, and there's nobody's there but Lucifer.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Amanda?
Well, no, it's just it is such an unexpected outcome. It's sort of the least expected thing you could possibly imagine is the opposite of a battle. It's Lucifer actually says, "Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. I was packing up and I needed somebody to hang on to this key for me."
It's totally gonna screw you over, but I mean, like that was his way of winning, right? That was
right. He was like, even better than me fighting you is me giving you this key.
And not telling you where your girlfriend is, because I know that's why you came.
Yeah.
So then they walk around and like. By the way, I love that one guy.
Yeah.
The one that's being tortured.
Yes. That is a theme that comes back in the Lucifer spinoff. The idea that, and I mean, it comes back later in this novel too. The idea that hell is people getting the punishments they think they deserve.
Right, like you there under your own power, and you can honestly leave anytime you want to. You just don't. Because of some perceived good or bad thing ratio that you thought of, when really there's no rules. Like that's a very interesting concept.
Right, like it's actually like it makes sense that this is just a different part of heaven because this is like what people want.
Right.
At some level.
Right, and like the fact that he just over this shit. He was like, people blame me for everything. Like I'm on their shoulder. I don't make them do anything they don't want to do. Like, I'm just here. I don't care about those people. They talking about they sell their soul to me. Why would I want a soul? Like, he's just so over this bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And then like he goes there to get rid of that one guy, and he's like, no, I need to be punished. I killed so many people. I have blood in the blood of babies, and I cut off my mistress' nose and sold her body to her lover, and all this terrible shit, right? But what you realize is, he's doing this because he thinks he's important, and like, you know what I'm saying, this really has nothing to do with punishment. This makes him feel badass. You know what I'm saying? And he was just, and the devil was like, look, nobody remembers you. Nobody cares. Get the fuck on. Just go. Nobody cares what you did 100,000 years ago. Nobody can even point out where your country used to be at on the map anymore. The only person that cares about what you did is you. Because like after a while, he started naming his crimes, but eventually they sound like boasts as opposed to crimes, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he's the villain that we were complaining about at the beginning. He's the villain who's like, oh, and I did this horrible thing, and I did that horrible thing, and I did that horrible thing. Just enumerating examples of villainy to try and convince you that he's a bad guy rather than actually even doing anything bad.
Right.
Maybe he didn't do anything at all.
Maybe he didn't. So, the devil leaves, cuts off his wings, and he says something very interesting, as in, like, I rebelled, but, like, how much of that was planned? How much of that was even my choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently, like, basically what he's saying is I ended up working for God anyway. And if it wasn't me, it would be somebody else, because hell needs heaven for heaven to be special, right?
Yeah.
So he like, I've been played, and I'm just done playing God's game. And I love the fact that this revelation happens off panel. Because the issue before, he's readying for war. So between him ready...
Oh, no. You think he was actually getting ready for a fight?
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
Because he doesn't say we're getting ready for a fight. He says, Dream is coming, we have to get ready.
Okay.
So, like, he wasn't waiting. I don't think he was planning on fighting. I think that if you, that it's intentional misdirection.
All right.
That he was planning on emptying hell, and
Gotcha.
Right, because he says, some say that one day in hell is much like all the rest. That in this place of flux, eternal, nothing changes. But this day in hell, this day you shall all remember forever and ever, and so shall he. He doesn't actually say we're going to fight him. He just says that something in hell is going to change.
Okay, you're right. So,
No, you're right. It is also interesting to think of, like, could he have had that revelation? Like, could Dream coming have triggered that revelation for him? Could he have gone from being ready to fight to being like, no, you guys, this is what we're going to do?
Right.
I think either way is a really interesting reading.
Yeah, so he cut off his wings, said he's done playing God's game. He says peace. And goes into his own series with Mike Carey, basically.
Yep. Yeah. So, after this, what we've got is, Neil Gaiman doing his, mythology revision, where he
first version of this.
Yes. Yeah, he has a version of the Egyptian god of death, and a version of the Norse gods, and a version of a Japanese, I guess maybe Shinto deity. He has demons that were cast out of hell. He has delegates from heaven. He's got chaos and order and, just an entourage. Everybody's knocking at his door for the real estate that was hell. Because everybody needs more land, more power, whatever. And they're all at Dream's castle ready to bribe him. And it's interesting that Morpheus seems willing to go along with this. Like, he's like, okay, we have a public fancy dinner, and then each of you are going to come bribe me. And after I hear everyone's bribes, I'm going to decide. I'm going to let you have official arguments, and then I'm going to decide. But, and there's a slight digression while all this is going on, where we flash sideways to Earth to see what's happened now that hell is empty, which is that a lot of the dead actually return as essentially zombies. And we get a classic boys boarding school mystery story where the only living boy who's left at boarding school over Christmas vacation has to deal with all of like the zombies that come back and populate the school, and he has to deal with zombie bullies and zombie teachers. And
no, those are not bullies. Those are fucking psychopaths.
Yes. And all of these dead people eventually actually kill him. So he's no longer the only living boy at school. He's now a dead boy.
One of my favorite things in there is when he's in class without the zombies. He said after 10 minutes he realized no one was breathing.
Yeah.
And like that's a very vivid thing to like say. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's no one is breathing.
It's a very creepy little story that has sort of this like Hardy Boys feel to it.
Right.
Like it's written, the tone of it, it's very like straightforward and very, I want to say like young adult.
Before that was a term.
Yeah, it's very Harry Potter, but like nightmare Harry Potter.
And I love the one they had their live headmaster, and his mother came back. So yeah, I just came back from hell because your husband wanted to do terrible things to me. But
right.
So like this is what I get from this. This is my interpretation, right? Mm-hmm. They was into some kinky shit, and like she liked it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she couldn't stop talking about it.
Yep, and she wanted to show her son it. You know what I'm saying? How her husband just wanted to punish her over and over, and how she got to hell, and how she was just punished over and over again. Like,
and honestly, isn't that really hell? Is having to listen to your mom talk about that?
Yeah. 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 Okay, go ahead, keep going.
But I mean, so after that diversion, we get back to the resolution where Dream has made a decision, sort of. What actually happens is that God makes a decision, which is that the angels he sent to, overview, sort of oversee the negotiations, are actually going to go to hell in Lucifer's place.
And completely locked them out. And all they did was do their job. They didn't do nothing wrong. They didn't rebel. But God needs someone to run that place.
Well, right. And by locking them out for no reason, by dismissing them from heaven in the Silver City forever, they now want to rebel at some level.
Right.
Like, they're like, oh, really? Like they're now, like, that now, all that simple action has put them in the right mindset to take over for Lucifer. So Dream lets them take the key, and meanwhile, he's learned that the demons have nada, and he can, because they're in the dreaming, essentially just stomp them quickly and save her.
What do you think about that sexy devil sex scene?
I try not to think about it.
Yo, I'm not a woman, but there's something where, like,
It's a little gross.
spiders out of places.
Spiders in my vagina. No thanks.
You see, I wasn't gonna. God damn it, I wasn't gonna say it, Amanda.
That's that's what it is.
Yes, this is shit. Keeping it classy, but yeah, that man, all of that was terrible, and it seems like everybody that offered him stuff was stuff that they would want, right? Not understanding what Dream would want,
Right?
Like, it's just stuff they would do, stuff they would take, right? Like,
right.
With the demons, like, we give you back your girlfriend, and you could take revenge on this guy that had your stuff. And Dream, like, why do I want to take revenge on him? Like, I beat him. Like, why I'm not mad at him anymore. I'm not vindictive or evil like that. Why would I, like, why would I need him as a gift?
Right, and the fairy delegation shows up and is like, you can have this woman. And he's like, thanks, I guess. Like, what do I need a fairy woman for? Like, again, that's like what, a fairy king would want as a bribe.
Right, exactly.
I do want to point out that the Egyptian goddess Bast was going to bribe Dream with information about where his brother was. Right. Which is an interesting sort of story thread we haven't looked at too much.
Which I'm pretty sure will come back.
That's how it works. You've read it. You've read stories before.
No, what? No.
And then the volume just finishes with actually some closure for Nada.
She gets reincarnated as an Asian boy.
Why not?
Hey, it works, right? And again, it's this thing where Gaiman in 1989 is playing with gender and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And the role of gender and the fact that he loves Nadia, even if she's gonna grow up to be a Chinese man, he still loves Nada, and Nada is always welcomed.
Yeah.
So that's and I also love the fact that he is still not understanding what he did was wrong, and now they have to set him straight. And she's like, "Motherfucker, do you not realize what you did?" And he's like, "No, do you not?" Like she had to almost shake him to make him realize what a terrible thing he's done. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, and I guess one of the last things I want to talk about Thor and his little hammer.
This version of Thor was very it was less compelling than the Hemsworth version, we'll say.
I don't know. I think he's more compelling. I love this version of Thor. He's so insecure and inadequate in his muscles and his really, really, really small hammer that he says if you rub it gets bigger. And you know what? Just to show you, Loki is interesting no matter what version of Norse mythology it is, whether it be this version or the Marvel. Loki always end up being the most interesting character.
Yeah.
For all Norse gods. So,
yeah.
So man, I think that's everything, right? I think.
Yeah, we just went through the whole
Yes.
4 volumes.
Yes, I can see why other people, when they do this a volume per podcast. But we're not going to do that because we are glutton for punishment.
We're in the corner of hell where you where when they try to kick you out, you go, no, I read these books and I have to talk about them.
All at once.
You can't throw me out of hell yet.
Yeah, we have to talk about them all at once. All right, listeners, we're wrapping up on this one. Our next show will be on the 3rd for Sandman. For our prestige format, we'll be reading volumes. Amanda, what volumes are we reading?
We would do 5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, and 7, yes. So look for our next Sandman episode, March 3rd. Read volume 5, 6, and 7. And how many? From what issue to what issue is that?
I'm not sure. It's been so long since anyone's read them as single issues.
Don't worry about it then. You'll figure it out.
Honestly, if you can stop reading, that would be a surprise. I feel like you'll probably just keep reading all the way through.
So is there anything else you want to add, Amanda, like before we go?
No, I'm really looking forward to finding out how you like the story as you keep reading, and I'm also interested. I'm always seeing new things when I go back and reread this, and I appreciate it more and more every time. So I'm also looking forward to reading more of it.
All right. Well, Amanda, let's get out of here. I am Jamil Payne.
I'm Amanda Comey.
And we are out.